All right, Caleb, you're going to have to talk me off the ledge because this anniversary show for AEW Dynamite did not feel very anniversary-like, and they had some of the lowest of lows, I think, on any Dynamite show. Starting off with, I don't think they even announced all the matches that were going to be on the show at the top of the show or after the first match like they do on every other show. And if they did, it was just in passing vocally and did not have title cards or anything. When they always, either before or after the first match, they always run down the show, which I don't think they did. I could be completely wrong on that, but I did not see it. And then, of course, we have some really sloppy wrestling in general. And, some very strange... there was a very strange finish. We had some very strange storylines here. And some stuff that just did not make any sense. So you're going to have to help me out here.
All right. I think that I agree that there were some low lows, unfortunately, for this anniversary show. I also think, however, that there were some highs, and I think maybe we can discuss some of those. I also think that maybe the lows that we're thinking of might be different. Some of what you just said, I can appreciate, and I definitely think that you're on the right track there. But as we get through it, we'll see what we thought, because I thought there were lows as well, but it wasn't necessarily in the wrestling category, with the exception of one match. But otherwise, I thought that the wrestling was pretty decent. I think you're totally right about running down the card. I didn't see any of that. I thought that was super weird. I thought they would make it a bit more of a big deal for an anniversary show. I know it wasn't one of their named shows like they do with, Fight for the Fallen or some of the other like Fyter Fest that they've done named Wednesday Night Dynamite shows. But I thought it would receive the same level of pomp and circumstance, and I didn't feel that at all. So in that area, I think I agree with you. I didn't see anything run down, though they did make a big deal of the card on social media. If you were following them on Twitter at all, it was all over the place.
Yeah, but that's, of course, a downfall of everything, because not everybody's watching Twitter, and if you are following more than, 10 people, it's impossible to stay up in your Twitter feed anyways, because it just goes like crazy. And I felt, as far as pomp and circumstance went, I felt a regular Dynamite had more than this one. The only time that they did anything regarding anniversary stuff was some clips here and there during a picture-in-picture. That is the only time they had any year-in-review type stuff, and that was picture-in-picture. And for those of us who watch it on the fight feed, there wasn't even any sound with it. Normally, at least you still get commentary running through the commercial break when there's picture-in-picture for people on TNT. But there was zero sound with it. It was just dead. There wasn't even music or anything. It was just silence and just seeing the stuff on the screen. It was really messed up.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird too. When I realized they were doing a bit of a montage, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But like you said, there wasn't really any commentary over it. It wasn't, hey, this is 1 year of Dynamite. I was just kind of watching clips of old bits. So yeah, you're right. They didn't make a point to talk about the previous year at all. I think that they really were looking forward, doing some good matches and some good storylines too, but definitely didn't talk at all about the previous year.
I mean, it felt very similar to last week, 30 Years of Jericho. The only thing, they didn't even do that for the anniversary, but at least for Jericho, they had some celebrities send some videos in.
Right, that felt like a bigger deal.
All right, so let's set it up here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to That's Wrestling. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can tune in live over on YouTube. Just follow the link to the YouTube channel in the show notes. You can head over there. If you hit the bell notification, it lets you know as soon as we schedule a live show for AEW. It tends to be at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday after Dynamite, and then we tend to do Sunday afternoon for pay-per-views. And with New Japan, since they do not have a set schedule, it is all over. So if you hit the bell notification, it lets you know as soon as we schedule a live stream. I try to do it as much in advance as possible. It's at least a couple hours most of the time, but I try to do days ahead of time whenever I can. So yeah, we had a huge roundtable last Saturday, Not the one that just went by. Was it the one that just went by? Was the one that just went by. Holy crap. Like, all these days are running together. So less than a week ago, we had a huge roundtable. There were 5 of us talking about a year in review of AEW. We went 3 hours, which was probably more entertaining than any 3 hours of Raw in the past 10 years. And so we had that, so it was good. So you can go check that out. Also, we have a Discord. If you check out the link in the show notes in the description, you can come hang out with us there. Also, head over to iTunes, give us a review. Really helps out for the search results. And any mailbag questions, comments, feedback, all that good stuff, you can send those to Eric at that'swrestling.com. And with me this week, moving into the co-host chair for AEW stuff, is Caleb Johnson. How's it going, man?
Very well, sir. Doing great.
So we'll probably we're moving you into this space. We have Trey is going to be doing the New Japan stuff. Trey is now having to do some training for work like every Thursday at this time. So it was good. Yeah, it was good to pick up Caleb, and we had a really good time on the round table. So it was an easy choice to make. And so let's get into this show. This show actually started off with the AEW World Tag Team Championship match. This is a regular rules. There's a 60-minute time limit instead of the 20-minute time limit. FTR are defending their titles against best friends Chuck Taylor and Trent, used to be called Beretta. The match starts off, and we have quite a bit of back and forth here. And Chuck Taylor actually kind of stands up a bit here, putting on some of his. He's not really known for being the power guy, but he does hit some arm drags and actually does a series of shoulder tackles as well. Does a dive over the top rope. And then we have Trent coming in at one point and basically continuing on through the match. There's a lot of just back and forth, and FTR, of course, are sticking in their cheating ways here and there whenever they can. And eventually this moves to the outside, where Trent is outside the barricade, and Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian are at a arcade cabinet playing video games, and Trent gets speared through the arcade cabinet, which of course makes Kip Sabian very sad that his cabinet has been destroyed. And I believe it was Wheeler. Yeah, Wheeler had him, and very strange. So the finish of this match was very strange because Trent was taken out, left on the outside, but Wheeler decided to drag him back to the ring. As a quick side here, Kip Sabian tells Penelope to go get him. We don't know who he is, but it's kind of obvious who it was going to be once he does show up. But anyways, Wheeler drags him back to the ring. Trent can't get up. FTR goes for the Goodnight Express. Taylor ends up breaking it up. Trent hits Dax Harwood with a DDT, tags in Chuck Taylor, and then Wheeler tries attacking Chuck with the title belt, and Taylor gets him out of the ring, and then Dax Wheeler hits Taylor with the title belt, and like Rick Knox went down on all threes here. And it really made no sense that he would do this. I mean, he's a ref. He's used to moving out of the way of guys doing stuff. So why did he drop to all threes to duck out of the way here and miss what he knew was actually being swung? And then, like, I don't know how he didn't put 2 and 2 together that, oh, wait a minute, I'm ducking to try not to get hit, and this guy just fell over. So how do you not assume that, oh, he just got hit with the title belt? Anyways, that is the finish of the match, and Dax Harwood gets the 3 count here. So this is one of the downs here, is the ending of this match made absolutely no sense. So my biggest one, why would Cash Wheeler bring Trent back into the ring where he could have just gotten an easy count out win? And why did the ref drop to all fours to avoid getting hit by a title belt being swung, but couldn't put two to two together that the dude who just flopped over next to him got hit with said title belt that he was moving out of the way of?
Well, right off the bat, you've put me in a hard to defend position. I would say that I also thought that the finish of this match was a little weird. I did not, and it's funny you mention it. I rewound this. I was watching it later on like a DVR, and I had to rewind. And I think I watched it 3 times, trying to understand what Rick Knox was doing when he and then I understood. I kind of rewatched. I'm like, oh, okay, he's trying to get out of the way because he knows, I guess, that he was bouncing him against the ropes. I just was totally confused about why Rick Knox went down like he did, and he cowered too. Like he looked like he was like,
I don't see anything putting his hands over his eyes, basically.
Right, he was like head down on all fours. I thought that looked very contrived. It did not look natural at all. He, like you said, he's a referee. He should be able to get out of the way, or is used to that in general. I can understand maybe trying to dodge, but maybe he should have just taken a ref bump. It looked like, essentially, I think that who had him? They pushed him up against the ropes, and it was kind of that spot where the heels got the baby face like this. They push up against the ropes, and then he's going to push him back and maybe roll backwards. And that's when Dax hit him with the title. But it just looks so contrived that he fell down that way. It clearly to avoid something that he knew was going to happen. So I didn't like that at all. I think that them continuing to cheat the win is fine. I didn't mind that at all. But I'm just going to reference my notes here a little bit. I put that commentators were really putting up Tully. Tully continues to interfere in almost every match, which I think is fine. I think that the first 15 minutes of this match were wonderful. I wouldn't give it, a 5 stars, but I think it was a really good match right up until Best Friends hit Strong Zero. I think that right there was where the match should have ended, whether or not the Strong Zero was the finish, or perhaps they get a unique pinning predicament or a roll-up or something for FTR to retain. But when they hit Strong Zero, I was like, man, this is a good match. And then very soon thereafter, just a couple seconds later, I think, they hit a brainbuster on the outside, and then we get that whole spot with the video game cabinet. Couple notes. Kip Sabian is part of a tag team, right? Him and Miro are a tag team. I know they haven't necessarily done anything yet, I don't think, on Dynamite, but they're obviously clearly going to start a feud with Best Friends. And even then, I'm thinking, yeah, Kip and Miro are a team. Why is Kip not watching a tag team title match? It made him look really stupid that he's not paying attention to a match for the titles and instead playing video games. And I know that video games are his gimmick, but it seems to me like he should have at least been keeping an eye on the match. If he wants to be a contender, if they want to be in the tag team division, that he should be paying attention. So I think it makes him look dumb. I think FTR retaining is totally the right choice. I think Miro looked good in the post segment where he came out and beat down Best Friends. He looks really good. He called them the good friends in his promo. If you call it a promo, he said 4 lines. But, he came out and he said, good friends. I thought that was funny. Other than the finish, which I think was the right finish, but other than the circumstances surrounding it, I really thought it was a good match. It just didn't make any sense to me that, one, Kip's not paying attention. I think that kind of devalues what's going on in the ring. But also, yeah, the Rick Knox thing, them not taking a count-out win, which we've seen that they are willing to do in the past. We've seen them, pretend like, oh, we're going to, walk out of here if you're not going to, be in the ring. So I don't know. It just seemed a little weird to me. I agree with everything you said. I think Rick Knox looked kind of dumb, and I wish it was better. But in the end, I think the right decision was made. And really, if you separate the whole Kip Sabian video game stuff, I thought it was a good match.
Yeah, the match up until the end was a good match, but I don't understand how a clean countout victory is less oh crap, I just had the word. I guess suboptimal over a cheating win. That really makes no sense to me. in any context, even if you are a heel. Why wouldn't you take the count out victory? Because that's usually seen as a cheap way to win, and cheating is a cheap way to win. So I think this would get actually better heat of just taking the count out victory than doing the cheating finish, because the cheating finish went so bad and just kind of flopped. I think taking the count out victory would make them look more dislikable or unlikable, because it's kind of a cheap way to get a win. So yeah,
especially after putting them through what I thought again was a good match. To take a count out win really would have been some good heat, I think, to say, hey, after all that we just did, we're just going to take what we can get, walk back to the ring. And someone on commentary acknowledged it as well. I don't remember if it was Jim Ross. I think it was Jim Ross, or maybe Excalibur. Someone said, oh, they're going to get counted out. And he starts carrying Trent back to the ring. And I was like, that's dumb. Just leave him there.
It isn't the point to win at any way you can, and that was just like a simple, easy thing to do. So that just kind of made no sense. And then you touched on it after the match. Miro comes out and he starts beating up the best friends, and Kip Sabian joins in, and he cuts just a very tiny promo. He starts yelling in Bulgarian first, so we don't know what he said. And then he said, "Good friends." He said "good friends," right? And he said, "You break my shit," and that was about it. It kind of came up to that. And then we go into commercial break, and then we come back. It is Miro and Kip Sabian with Penelope Ford at ringside versus Lee Johnson and Sean Maluta. And this was basically just a squash match. Miro beats the crap out of Maluta for a bit, knocking him out of the ring. Miro then grabs him, sends him to the barricade, and then back into the ring. He lands a high kick, and then Miro goes after Lee Johnson, knocks him to the floor, and Miro leaves the ring, and he throws Lee Johnson up into the side of the stage, and then Sabian tags in. He hits Maluta with a splash. Miro tagged back in, and then puts on the camel clutch. And of course, he said he really exaggerating, having to yell "game." Couple more seconds. Over. Like, went so long, and puts on the camel clutch and gets the tap out. I'm not sure, they haven't, at least commentary hasn't figured out what they're calling, if they're calling it anything special beyond the camel clutch, because that's what it is. And I'm not sure. I assume he's not calling it game over, and if he is, then someone needs to alert him that Kenta's finisher has already called that, and it is not the camel clutch. So should probably give him a shout. I'm pretty sure there are people in the company that know that Kenta's submission is called game over, so they should probably check on that.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a wise choice, especially considering Kenta's position in New Japan right now. I think that you're probably going to be hearing it if you're watching any sort of New Japan. It's not like he's not featured over there. I think the idea probably was initially to call it game over, but it seemed like they reneged on that a little bit this week. My thought is that maybe they've been alerted that it's in use, or maybe they're just going to try to go with something else. But he does seem to be trying to get game over, as it were, because
as a catchphrase, I guess.
Promo, right? I think it's more of a catchphrase. I also noticed when he applied the camel clutch there, I think the Sean Maluta, I think he's probably pretty sweaty, because he went to grab him by the face and his hands went whoop right over his face.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little funny, but I think it's just the humidity. And at least it was only just a slip instead of Matt Sydal, almost breaking his neck. So
yeah, that came into play for a lot of the people in these matches. It was pretty warm. It wasn't actually as warm as you would think last night, but the humidity was probably horrible, because I wrote I checked during one of the matches. Let's see, I checked at 9:50. So at that was the end of the it was the final match, and it was 77 in Jacksonville. So not ridiculously hot, but I'm guessing the humidity was really bad. I didn't check the humidity, so. But I mean, later on during that last match, like Jake Roberts looks like he was going to pass out. He hadn't even been doing anything, and he was drenched with sweat. Hikaru Shida during their match, she was drenched with sweat, so like it had to have been just ridiculously uncomfortable. There might not have been any cross breeze or anything like that to cool them down, and under the hot lights probably made it worse. So who knows? It just maybe was just overly uncomfortable, and that of course came into play later on in some of these matches. And then of course after this match, we have Miro cutting the promo that we already talked about. No, that was it was after the match that he actually cut the promo, not before the match, but no big deal.
Right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go if you're going to continue on this one.
Oh, I took a couple notes here as well. I like to try to take notes throughout the show, but a couple things that came up for me, just little thoughts. I think that both Kip and Miro are decent promos. I think that they can, deliver some good intensity. I really thought Kip was a little funny when he was talking about his fight stick board, how he was so upset that it was broken. I think he said Alan. I don't know if you caught that, but it sounded like he called it Alan, and he said Alan meant everything to me, referring to his board, which I thought was a little funny.
That would be a hilarious inside joke if he named it Alan, because Alan is AJ Styles' real name, and of course AJ Styles is a huge video gamer as well. And he was on Twitch and whatnot. I mean, that came up we were talking about the list of Jericho, or the lexicon of Jericho during our thing, and he said Alan Jones, which is AJ Styles' real name. So that was that was really funny. So he could have named it. Could be an inside joke about AJ Styles.
Very possibly. So I think they're both a great promo. I think that Miro is totally wrong here. I think that he's a very good wrestler who was maybe not even underutilized, maybe just misutilized in WWE. And they put him, and I understand that they want to give, their wrestlers some creative freedom to work in certain storylines with their gimmicks. They want to give them that freedom. And I know Miro is a video game guy, but I don't like him in this, little stable here with Kip Sabian, where their gimmick is that they play video games, when Miro's out there crushing people. Like, I thought he looked really good in both their quick squash match, which he got 90% of, other than one quick splash by Kip Sabian, and also when he took out Best Friends after the previous match. I think he looks good. I think he cuts an intimidating promo, and they've got him in this video game gimmick that I just don't. And I'm speaking as a gamer. Like, I play video games, and I'm not saying that someone can't both play video games and be intimidating, but it just takes the edge off a little bit for me when Sabian's saying that his board meant everything to him. And instead, I think Miro could really be in the Lance Archer spot of destroying people. And I think that would be better utilized, in my opinion. So in the end, I think it was a good squash. Not that squashes go long, but I think it was a good match. It was an intense promo, but it's all centered around the destruction of a video game console. And that makes me scratch my head a little bit. I wish Miro was put in a different position.
Yeah, like Miro seems this seems really off for his character. One, I don't know why they didn't bring him in as a babyface to begin with, because he's a way more likable guy, and I think he was completely misused as a babyface in WWE, and they could have cast him correctly as a babyface in AEW. Very strange that he's coming here. I don't know. Could he just be a delete Jimmy Havoc out of the storyline and put Miro in? Like, this storyline was already planned to happen, but of course Jimmy Havoc got released, and they needed someone to fill in the role, and they're like, oh, Miro, we'll put Miro in there. And it feels like he was put in there and really for no reason. I can't figure it out what the link is between him and Kip Sabian. They haven't even talked about that. I don't know if they've ever even been in the same promotion on the indies or anything like that prior to Miro going to WWE at some point. So I don't get the connection between him and Kip Sabian. They haven't talked about it at all other than they play video games. Okay, that's great. But yeah, just really makes no sense.
To me, I think that they're blending kayfabe and reality just a little bit too much here, because I think the actual only connection between them is that they are both on Twitch, have big Twitch followings. They can both make little Twitch references based on everything that's going on with WWE taking control of their talents' Twitch accounts. I think that they really just kind of have them together because that is the common link. But like you said, they've not actually referenced how they know each other or why they are a pair other than their common interest, I suppose. And if this all leads to Miro turning on Kip Sabian in the near future, they want to do a feud with best friends, but I think that they should, if they're going to split them up, I think it'd actually be better to do it more quickly just to show that Miro, because he's still a new character, don't let him get too engrossed in this storyline or in the character he's currently in. Have him betray Kip Sabian, maybe even put a babyface Kip Sabian, having Miro turn on him, or vice versa. But I don't think they should stay together very long. And they haven't really given us a reason why they're together in the first place, like you said. So I agree with what you said, in that I think they did kind of miscast Miro a little bit as a heel after he got so over before being released from WWE.
Yeah, unless they plan on resolving this storyline quickly and going somewhere else with him. I don't know how many more weeks this thing has legs, so hopefully they move it along a little quicker than some other storylines that seem to have gone on way too long or didn't even hit resolution. One being the Ali storyline. We still have no resolution with the Ali storyline. It's been going on. It's been start, stop. And of course, QT Marshall was out for a month with COVID, so that's of course something that got in there. But then Eddie Kingston references to the Blade, you need to get your house in order, twice on two different shows, back-to-back weeks. Nothing. So it's like it's kind of a weird storyline that got dropped that everybody's kind of wondering. Hopefully this one resolves quickly and we can move on. And whoever made that arcade cabinet, you should get your refund, because that was made out of some pretty cheap ass wood if it's gonna fall apart like that.
Yes, 100%. I have a very close friend who had a arcade cabinet very similar, and he and I both, who are pretty strong guys, couldn't even lift the thing. It was a monster cabinet. So yeah, that one looked like it was bought at the toy section at Walmart.
Yep. Then we have a quick backstage. They send to a camera backstage. I like how they did this with the cameraman kind of running down the hall to catch what was going on instead of it feeling pre-planned, and then they somehow managed to get on camera. This actually shows the cameraman going to them. Lance Archer is actually beating the crap out of Jon Moxley in the hallway backstage. He's just beating on him, and there's some agents that come back. I saw Jerry Lynn in there, and then one of the agents gets punched by Lance Archer and dropped as well, and they finally get separated. And they haven't been able to in person build up this storyline because Lance Archer has not been able to be on TV for the past 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think. So
I think it was 3.
Yeah, so they weren't able to do this in person. So now at least they're adding a little bit more heat to the match here prior to the match on this show that's going to happen. Let's see. Then we have MJF making his way to the ring with Wardlow, and he says
before we get into MJF, we do that, if you don't mind, one other thing that I mentioned or noticed before I think the MJF promo is that they actually revealed the full bracket for the 8-man world title tournament. And if you want, real quick, we'll just run down the 8 people, because I believe only 6 of them were previously confirmed.
Correct.
So our full 8 participants are Pentagon. I guess he's Penta El Zero, I believe.
Yeah.
He's being billed. And Rey Fenix, Kenny Omega and Joey Janela, Colt Cabana, Hangman Adam Page, Wardlow, and Jungle Boy. And I've read those in the order, so those are actually going to be our first round matches: Phoenix versus Penta, Omega versus Janela, Cabana versus Hangman, and Wardlow versus Jungle Boy. I believe they also made mention very briefly, I don't know if I heard this right, but I believe that those 4 first round matches will all be happening next week on Dynamite.
I think 2 of them are, and then 2 of them will happen the next week.
Gotcha.
But we'll talk about the number 1 contenders after we're done reviewing the show, because there's a lot to dissect into that. Because nothing actually in the show actually came up really working about that, except a little bit at the end.
No, I just saw the graphic and thought it was interesting.
Yeah, so MJF comes out to the ring. He has Wardlow with him. He says that everybody boos him because they're envious of him, and he's here to stay on top. And then Jericho and the Inner Circle come out, and he to hear his groundbreaking announcement. And MJF points out, "Hey, Sammy finally got his jacket," and Sammy's holding it, and Jericho's like, "Put it on!" And he puts it on, and it is like 5 sizes too big for him, which is hilarious. I heard some other people thinking it was going to be like 5 sizes too small was going to be the gimmick, but this one it was huge. MJF talks up Jericho, how good he's looking. He wants to touch his hair because it looks so luscious, and he allows him to touch his hair, and then he goes on and beats around the bush about him wanting to join the Inner Circle. He's like, "I might kind of maybe hypothetically would like to join the Inner Circle," and Jericho is like, just cut the shit. And I believe that was earlier before he actually made the announcement, but anyways, he basically says he would like to join the Inner Circle. Jericho says he needs time with the Inner Circle to make a decision, and that they are going to discuss it over a steak dinner next week. So yeah, we will see how that goes. I'm curious. I think this segment seemed to drag a bit for me here, just to get to this announcement of they're going to go out for a steak dinner. So this segment next week better be freaking amazing, so we can pull this thing back into the lane that was already in, because it was already going good. Now we just need to get it back over the center line here.
All right, sounds like we were kind of on the same page there. For the first part of this segment, I was very entertained, as I always am, by Jericho and MJF. I've really enjoyed pretty much everything that they've done together up to this point. I think Sammy's jacket being too big was hilarious. I got a good kick out of that. However, like you said, I think it started to drag a little bit. They had a whole little bit where they're talking about Animal Planet, and they made a funny little joke about how it's not under the Turner umbrella, which I thought was funny, but also I was kind of like, all right, we kind of know where this is going. Let's have it. And this was weird for me because I really like the callback, actually, to Jericho. I believe there was an instance where Jericho was trying to apologize to... Now, this is months and months and months ago. He was trying to apologize. I don't remember who to, but he couldn't get the word sorry out. And he was like, "I'm so," and he would just walk away. And I thought that was a funny callback with MJF, but I didn't actually like the little inner monologue that MJF did. He was like, "Oh, I'd want to join the inner child of inner peace," or something like that, and then he was like, "Oh, get it together, Max." And I was like, wait, is he intimidated by Jericho? Because he's never really let on before. He has tried to butter him up quite a bit, try to touch his hair and tell him how good he's looking, but I didn't. All of a sudden now I was like, wait, is he scared to ask, or is he can't get the words out? So I thought it was a little weird. And then he did that twice, I believe. He kind of was, "Get it together, Max, like you're an idiot," which he generally has never ever let on that he thinks of himself any less than, a millionaire and a star, So like, I thought that was a little out of character. And then at the end, he ratchets the intensity back up and he's like, "We're going to have a steak dinner." And he like yelled. So I was like really confused by the tone of the promo. And like you said, if this wasn't the actual him joining the Inner Circle, which is what I expected on an anniversary show. I expected a big angle, and I expected him to fully join and commit to the Inner Circle tonight. Instead, they just push it to next week over this steak dinner, like you mentioned. And I mean, that better be great, because I feel like we went a week too long with this. This should have been, I think, him joining the Inner Circle tonight.
Yeah, when you're talking about that, I just remembered one visual that was really funny. When Jericho comes into the ring and MJF is like complimenting how good he looks, Jericho is like flexing his abs so he has abs, and as soon as MJF is done complimenting him, he just released it and like his abs suddenly disappear. It was hilarious.
I noticed that. I have to go back.
But yeah, I think this segment went a little bit too long, and hopefully next week they pull this back over the double yellow here and get it back into the lane that they were going. Next up, we have a video package which are always great. Brit Baker is with Tony Schiavone at a spa, and they're getting a massage, and Brit Baker realizes that Tony is not wearing anything under the towel, and she freaks out. Rebel brings in the flip book of the rules of being a role model. So we're up to rule number 5: be the baddest bitch on the block. And then they are getting a pedicure together. She talks about that she is going to, have a great comeback match, or come back to the ring and continue to, she's going to rule over the women's division, basically puts the women's division on notice. And then of course we get the 40-year-old virgin call, and they are waxing Tony's chest and just torturing him. I thought it was great. They're laying on like the massage table, and Tony is holding the mic over to her so she can talk. These have always been really fun. I love how like Britt Baker is such a bitch to Tony, but Tony somehow has this weird affection for her and goes along with it. It's like, oh, that's just Britt, and it's from he's got like a blind spot for what she does, which is really funny. And Britt Baker's segments have been just great. I've loved a lot of the stuff she did, especially when she got dumped in the dumpster. That was one of my favorites.
I think that when Britt Baker came into the company, and well, not even came in, began with the company essentially. I believe she was the first woman signed with the company in the first place.
Yep.
So she was there from the onset. But when she was a babyface, I was, fine with it, no big deal. But really, once she turned heel, I think she really hit her stride. The segments with Tony all of them have been amazing. If you listen to our roundtable review this past Saturday, you'll know that I have a special affection for the Brit Baker, Tony Schiavone spots. Those are some of my favorite memories of year 1 of Dynamite. Particularly the chubby Whataburger faces will always make me laugh. And when she called him Mr. Starbucks and he got all proud. So this segment, in my notes, I just put A+. This is probably one of my favorite things on this show. You said that you think that Tony has a little bit of a blind spot for Britt. I also think it's a little bit the same, because when she realized that he was also naked getting a manicure or pedicure, and they're both laying there and he's holding the mic over, I thought when she realized and yelled, I was like, okay, that's the end of the segment. That's funny. That was only like halfway. Then they're doing the waxing. Then they're together, with the fish eating their, toes. And it kind of like made me think, even though she realized that, she didn't like kick him out. Like, it was just weird and gross and she yelled. But then the segment continued and they're laughing together. And it makes me think that the relationship just continues to mature. Not that it's anything weird, but I just think that they've got this great friendship, like in the background, that's developed. I think it was hilarious when she was mad at him for not being there for her comeback match. And he said, well, the Young Buck super kicked me. And she said, well, I got a broken nose. I still showed up. And she says, Taz would have showed up. And he went, Taz, and rolled his eyes. That made that whole segment for me. But yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. I think this was an A+, and it made me laugh so much. Yeah. I love these segments.
It was good. Then we move on. We have the AEW TNT Championship match. Cody versus Orange Cassidy, TNT Championship match with a 20-minute time limit. So back to our normal rules after the dog collar match last week. This match I thought was the high point as far as in-ring work for the night. This was such a fun match. Orange Cassidy, actually, they made a big deal that it was his first lockup in AEW. So actually the elbow collar tie up is great. And Orange Cassidy, he just fires up at one point, and he's actually showing some emotion here because he actually wants to win this title, and he puts on a very good showing and puts in a lot of effort. And this actually went the way I thought it was going to go, or at least was one of the best outcomes. Near the end of the match here, Cassidy hits a beach break on the ring apron, and they both roll to the floor. So Cassidy has to get Cody back into the ring and gets a 2 count. And then Cody gets up and he manages to avoid the orange punch. Cody goes for a crossroads, but Cassidy counters that with into a tornado DDT, hits a beach break again for a near fall in the middle of the ring, and then Cassidy is just waiting for Cody to get up, and he did he hit the punch?
No, he never hit.
No, he didn't hit the punch because he countered out of a crossroads and got into the mousetrap roll up right as time expired. The ref managed to count to 2, but the bell rang before the 3. And while they did fudge the time a little bit, because I think it was actually 18 minutes and not 20 minutes, this was went the way I thought would probably be the way they would go. It was kind of the most logical way, is to go to a time limit draw. That way Orange Cassidy doesn't get beat. You don't take the title off of Cody right away, and it basically ends as a draw here, and no one gets damaged. So that's what I thought it was. I thought beating Cassidy would be the wrong thing to do. So it was either going to be they were either going to do a double DQ, a double count out, or in this case, a time limit draw. I didn't think Cody should have won at all, and Orange Cassidy winning would have been fine. Also, I think would be the other outcome. But going to time limit draw. Only the 3rd time in the history of AEW going to the time limit. So they bring that in, and Orange Cassidy stays protected. And they actually end up announcing later on in the show that they are going to lock it up once again in 2 weeks over the title. So we will see how that goes.
That's my only the only potential negative that I saw in this entire 20-something minutes of television was that they are going to have a rematch in 2 weeks. And I really was hoping, in my opinion, just fantasy booked in my head, that they were going to make the match at Full Gear a 3-way for the belt between Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and Cody Rhodes. I was really hoping that that's the way that they were moving. It looks like there is going to be a definitive match between the two here in 2 weeks, which I understand, is just another draw. It's another great reason for people to tune in and watch. But I was really hoping that they were going to go with a 3-way at the pay-per-view. Otherwise, you hit the nail on the head at every point. I think that this was a fantastic match. It was the best match in the ring, I think. Not surprised. I've enjoyed Cody's stuff probably most of anybody in the entire company over the last year, and he continues to do really great work. Orange Cassidy locking up got a big little mini pop out of me. I'm watching at home alone, and I'm still, really excited that he did that. I think it was the perfect finish. A great callback to Cody's draw with Darby Allin, who he will be facing at the pay-per-view, and I thought was a real nice touch that they put him in the stands and had him very intently watching, as opposed to Kip Sabian earlier watching the title match there. They really had Darby dialed into the match in the ring. I thought that was a really nice add, and I think it was just there's not much to say other than I think that this was really well done. It was the best finish that I could have thought. Again, I just had hoped it was going to lead to a 3-way, but I think it's the right call not to beat Orange Cassidy right now. He's obviously not coming off the program with Jericho, and I do see him in the future, having this title, maybe even in the near term. And I like that they've given him something to care about a little bit, because he actually had a match, I believe, with Mr. Brody Lee while he was TNT champion. So it actually kind of gives a little bit of reason here. It's like, hey, Orange Cassidy actually wants this belt. It's something that he cares about. He is chasing. So it gives them a good reason to depart from the, hands in pockets gimmick. Not he still did some of it in this match, but it kind of gives him a little more reason not to do the entire match like that. It's actually something he cares about. And by the end, man, the last few minutes of this match, I thought were very well timed. Apart from where you said you think it was actually 18 minutes, I think that this whole match went really well. And the last sequence, I mean, the swinging DDT, oh man, I was on the hook, and I really actually thought that maybe they were going to pull the trigger with Orange Cassidy. But in the end, really, I do think I prefer the time limit draw. And I think it also, because they've only done it 3 times in the course of the last year, it gives you a reminder that it is a possible outcome of a match, while not, I think doing it more would have been a little too hampered. But I think that reminding you that this is a possible outcome, and it kind of gives a little respect to the time limit. So even in a normal match, when they say this is a 20-minute time limit match, and someone says, oh, 15 minutes have expired, the intensity kind of gets a little ramped up. You start to care a little bit more. So I'm glad that they actually did this result so that people will remember, hey, that is something to pay attention to on an average week of Dynamite.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's only been 3 time limit draws that they've had. I was advocating for at least happening, in the past few weeks, that we needed another one at some point, because it always felt like everybody came in under the time limit, especially for the TNT match. I thought that Cody versus Darby Allin would either hit a time limit draw, or now with Orange Cassidy, I thought it would. And I think they kind of made the right decision. Of course, that brings in, okay, what are they going to do in 2 weeks? Are they going to have Cody beat Orange Cassidy, or are we going to either see a second time limit draw, or are we going to see some other type of shenanigans happen during the match? Because I still wouldn't advocate for beating Orange Cassidy, even in the second match. So that's going to be one to find out what actually happens. There was actually one move in here that Cody gave... Orange Cassidy gave Cody a crazy Michinoku driver at one point in this match, and it was amazing. Yeah. So
yep, that Michinoku driver looked great. I also thought that the beach break on the apron was pretty gnarly. Yeah. When he hit it, and I actually really liked that it was almost like he did it quickly. It wasn't like he took time to prepare. He just hit it by instinct. He had him in position, and even though it really kind of hurt him, because really he should have gotten him in the ring, because then a smaller guy has to lift Cody back into the ring, kind of roll him in, and that's precious time, and you can feel that the competitors, in kayfabe, I mean, you can really feel almost their intensity, like, hey, I've got to get this guy back in there, because in the background they're saying, hey, we've got 1 minute left. But he still hit it kind of instinctually on the apron, even though they both fell out into the ringside area. Into the ringside area. So honestly, I thought that was really, really good. I can't really give it enough praise. I thought that this was the best match on the show.
Then we have Alex Marvez. He goes to interview Jake Roberts and Lance Archer. John Moxley interrupts and attacks Archer. So now John Moxley is beating on Archer for a little bit, and they get pulled apart pretty quickly. So just adding a little bit more to the match that comes up later in the evening. But that was about it.
Can I ask also, do you think that Jake Roberts talks a little bit too much during these segments?
He has been, yes.
He kept like saying stuff even earlier, the original backstage one that you referenced earlier, that first shot of them backstage. Again, I agree that the cameraman running down the hall was actually kind of cool because it didn't look so staged. But Jake Roberts is like just yelling at the agents, and I'm like, just shut up for a second, let them sell the intensity of the moment. I think he's gotten just a little too chatty, but maybe that's just a pet peeve.
Yeah, I think he is uncomfortable with silence, and I think that's actually an AEW thing, that they're uncomfortable with silence. Like, so a lot of times they don't let things breathe; they have to just pile on. But yeah, Jake has definitely been losing it for me, especially during the pandemic era. Like, the first few weeks were fine in the pandemic era, but then he started to get very long-winded and went way off the rails a few times with Taz. So him and Taz had a couple live in-ring promo back and forths, and I think Jake went so off the rails that Taz is like, I don't even know how to recover. And Taz is a great talker, and if Taz can't bring this thing back on the rails, then we got a problem. So yeah, I think he has been getting a little too chatty, and hopefully somebody can point that out to him.
Yeah, my preference would be to see him used a little bit more. I mean, he's obviously in a similar role already, but to maybe take the Arn Anderson approach where he speaks with video packages or specific, filmed promos. The stuff that he does with Lance Archer, I think they had a couple neat promos where they were in some random backyard and just Archer was destroying people.
That was actually Darby Allin's actual backyard. That was his actual ring that he has in his backyard.
Oh, that's funny. I did not know that.
Yep.
But I think like having him voice over those, I think that's totally fine. But on the weekly basis, just have him come to the ring, do a little bit of management, but he doesn't need to be talking all the time.
No, yeah, and especially if you do it pre-record, you can edit it, and if he says something really dumb or whatever, you can always trim it and all that good stuff. So yeah, it tends to be more effective. Next up we have Tony Schiavone. He is down at ringside with Matt Hardy as well as Rebby and the rest of the Hardy family, all of his kids. And Hardy says he's enjoying AEW Dynamite's 1-year anniversary show, even though there hasn't been too much calling back to it being an anniversary. And Hardy says that he's all clear for the ring. And then on the big screen, a video shows up. I was thinking this was produced by Darby Allin, because this was a very Darby Allin-esque video. We have basically pictures of all of Hardy's personas hanging on like a clothesline, and then somebody comes in with a lighter and lights them all on fire, and then it is revealed that it is Sammy Guevara. Sammy says that he was the one who had attacked Hardy backstage, and he is not going to continue beating up Matt Hardy until he is sent home for good. And yeah, they're going to continue this cursed feud. And I'm going to state what I believe it was. It might have been Semper Vivi who said it, but they should have their next match in a bouncy castle, so neither of them die.
I think that's a great assessment. I actually hadn't heard Semper Vivi say that, but that makes me laugh, and it's true. I'll refer to my notes here a little bit, just for what I wrote down. Matt is 100% healthy and cleared, interrupted by a hooded figure. Oh God, it's Sammy. They're continuing this. I'm sure Rebby is thrilled. That was my notes. I'm surprised that they're continuing this direction, but if I look back, again, it's more of a curse than I think it is really botches on anyone's part. I think that the table placement at the pay-per-view was a little weird, and they obviously overshot it when Matt flew back and cracked his head on that concrete. I think that it wasn't really anyone's fault. It was a planned that spot that went wrong. I think that the chair shot from Sammy was, in a sense, his fault. From what I've heard, that it was he picked up a non-gimmicked chair, so it was heavier and really tore Matt open when he first really opened up there on Dynamite. But on a whole, like, I really can't say it's one guy or another's fault. It's just like you said, the feud seems cursed, but they are going to continue, and I don't have any problems with it from a storyline point of view. I just feel like it's they better wrap this up quick, and they better wrap them up like the Michelin Man in some tires or some rubber or something, because
bubble wrap them.
Yeah, bubble wrap them, exactly. That might just need to happen. And I think Matt really, really sees something in Sammy. I mean, I'm talking non-kayfabe here. I think he really sees something in Sammy, probably really wants to work with him and do a good program. I just pray for everyone's safety in this course of this feud.
Unfortunately, we haven't gotten that Hardy compound match that we were expecting when he was calling out Jericho to have come to the Hardy compound, and everybody thought it was going to be Sammy that was going to show up in his stead. That match has not happened. They still have not done the Matt Hardy compound match, the Broken Matt, but I'm sure he's going to break at some point, and we're going to get Broken Matt back at some point. So
yeah, I think that's going to happen too. And actually, now that you say that, I almost forgot that we never got that match, and it makes me sad because some of the promos leading up to it, with Jericho's interactions with Vanguard One, and I think there was a promo that happened where Vanguard One was, I think, at Jericho's house, and he was in
yeah,
his hot tub in his gear, so he's
in
like
his
in
leather
gear in
pants,
the hot
yeah.
tub. Yeah, that was like one of the funniest things on the show that week. And it makes me sad actually now to realize that we never actually got a real payoff for that. So maybe that's the direction they're headed.
Yeah, I rewatched that segment like 6 times because it was just so damn funny. That little bastard stole my t-shirt.
Release the hounds, and these little like chihuahuas come out.
Next up, we have a bunch of teams. They are out on the stage, and Tony Schiavone is in the ring, and they have a little tumbler thingy, and they are going to draw. Why, if you have all these rankings, a 4 teams that are going to be in a fatal 4-way. Well, they just said it was a 4-way, so I don't know if it's a fatal 4-way. Hopefully it is not. Hopefully it's an elimination match, because that would make way more sense. I don't know why. I hate the first pin gets the win the match. I don't know why they don't eliminate people, and why are there DQs allowed in a more than 2 person / team match. Yeah. So they draw names, and it's going to be Private Party, John Silver and Alex Reynolds, Butcher and the Blade, and then the last one, Tony Schiavone's like, oh, it's the Young Bucks, because of course they super kicked him in the previous weeks, and Matt destroyed his phone at one point, and they of course come down to the ring. They grab the mic. They say, "Don't worry, Shivani. You don't freak out. We're not here to super kick you. We're here to super kick them." And they're looking at FTR, but they turn and super kick, I believe, one member of Dark Order and then one member of Butcher and Blade. I don't remember which one. Then there's a brawl that breaks out between everybody. In the end, we have the Bucks and Private Party. They fist bump, and then Bucks give them super kicks as well, and everybody's gotten a super kick, and they head out. Matt Jackson's hair, what is going on with his hair? He did the pullback of just the bangs, which was really funny. So he's just kind of looking like a total douche.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that it's part of the heel turn and not necessarily a style choice. I think he looks hilarious. His hair is getting wicked long. I don't know what kind of style he's going for. Overall, with this whole segment, man, for a company that prides itself on stats and good records, and generally, I think, does a pretty good job of saying, hey, these are number 1 contenders because they are, 9-1 or something. Instead, they literally pull out a bingo ball cage and pull out random names out of a hat, and they turn out to be some of the top teams anyway. Like the Bucks and the Private Party, I know probably have decent records. I'm not sure about Silver and Reynolds or Butcher and the Blade, but in the end, like, there were tons of teams out there on the stage, which, to be fair, I thought was a cool touch. But like, I didn't like them using this names out of a hat method, because this is a 4-way to determine a number 1 contender. And it seems like they could have taken the top 4 names off of a table or rankings and said, hey, these are going to be the teams. It's not too hard between Dynamite and Dark to give someone a win or 2 here and there. And, lo and behold, they are your top contenders. So this seemed a little weird to me. I didn't mind the brawl. I didn't mind the super kicks. I thought that was pretty cool. But if I can just pet peeve just for a second, I don't know if I'm fully on board with the Bucks heel turn. I don't know if it is a heel turn or if it's. I prefer heel turns that are that happen in a moment, and that you're like, oh wow, they did that thing, and that thing is definitely a heel move. They have turned, And instead with the Bucks, it seems like it's kind of been a slow burn turn, whether or not they're with Kenny or not after his fallout with Hangman Adam Page. But the Bucks turn, I think it's a turn, but I'm not 100% sure. They're kind of super kicking everyone, both good guys and bad guys. And if they're going to win this match and feud with FTR are classic heels. I like them in that. I don't know why they wouldn't have waited for a heel turn until after that match, maybe have them lose and then turn on FTR, and just, beat them down. Not necessarily that FTR is already a heel, but just to have them beat them down, or give us a real definitive heel turn. And instead, I'm not sure if I'm really on board with what they've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a floated idea of how they could have solved this and made this random draw make sense. And that would be if it was FTR's idea to do this, because they don't want to face the Bucks. They want to try to face lower card teams and get the wins. They want to try to avoid the Bucks. That's kind of like their primary goal. So if they would do this and stay out of the rankings, it's like, oh, we got a great idea. Let's do a random draw for whoever can face us. And of course,
and it would have even been funnier too if it had been, say, Silver and Reynolds, I don't know, Janela and Sunny Kiss, like some random teams that are, maybe not as either well known or are lower on the rankings. Because I mean, it's all predetermined. They could have just pulled names of teams that really don't matter, and then at the end pulled the Bucks, and you're like, oh dang. But then maybe it makes it a foregone conclusion that the Bucks will win that 4-way.
Right.
So, which, in my opinion, I think is going to happen anyway. I think it's kind of obvious that they are going to win that 4-way match, but maybe they'll go a different direction. But I agree, that would have been a much better way to stage it.
Yeah, if it was FTR's idea, because then they'd be like, well, we can get these random teams, and if they have to go through a brutal 4-way, then at least whoever comes out of it's beaten down before we have to face them. So that'd play way more into the character of FTR as being the ones to facilitate this, but that just didn't come out. It would have been an easy fix, and then it would have made totally way more sense.
Right, I agree.
Next up, we had kind of a low point of the night, and this was the AEW Women's Championship match. Hikaru Shida defending her title against Big Swole. I have not been a fan of Big Swole in general ever since she came in. Like, as a person, she seems cool. Like, I heard her thing on AEW Unrestricted and whatnot. But just in the ring, it just does not work for me. As far as on TV, she seems to have like no character other than she dances around and she's coming in and makes weird gestures at times. That seems to be about it. And then we have, I think the heat really got to them as well, as because there was a lot of blown spots in here. They went for a double arm drag at one point and they both went down for some reason. And then of course they tried to do a double kip up spot, and Shida doesn't even make it like a quarter of the way up. She just like flops down. And then they were going to do a shoulder tackle spot. Again, both of them fell down for some reason instead of one going down. And then Shida's strikes just looked weak as hell. Like, her running knee strikes usually look pretty vicious, but they just looked horrible. There was a comment from JR at one point that said Shida is not a power wrestler, and I wrote in our chat, I'm like, what is he talking about? I have seen Hikaru Shida give Nyla Rose a Falcon Arrow. So she has plenty of power. She is very strong. She is very deceiving on how strong she is. So yeah, that just made no sense. And then we have Swole hitting a knee strike. Shida hit the knee strike and a Falcon Arrow for a near fall. Swole ends up hitting Dirty Dancing for a near fall. And then Shida ducks a second one and then hits 2 knee strikes to Swole. Both of them looked super weak. Like one of them looked like it didn't even come close.
One of them didn't connect.
And then the second one looked like there was nothing behind it. And usually she at least puts it, it's like, this is why you're wearing kick pads, so you can shin the person in the face and it's not going to kill them. But yeah, so I think the heat just got to both of them because she just looked exhausted here and just like didn't have anything behind her shots. I'm not sure how long this match went. I'm guessing somewhere around the 10-minute mark. But it is way longer than it needed to be, and it just did not work out. I was really bummed just to see the performance out of Hikaru Shida in this match. I didn't expect a ton out of Swole anyways, but yeah, it was kind of sad to see how bad this went.
Yeah, I felt very much the same. I think this was the low point of the night. It was, and again, it's disappointing for me. I am actually a pretty big fan of Shida for what they've shown us. I know we talked during our roundtable discussion about getting to know the characters a little bit more, and I feel like we don't actually know a lot of the folks in the women's division very well, other than Britt Baker. We know all about her. Um, I'm a little bit. I differ a little bit from you. I actually don't mind Swole. I think she's got a neat move set. I don't like her music. That's one thing that bugs me about her. It's very bland. Otherwise, I actually kind of like her. She seems pretty charismatic. I think she's got some good moves. But I don't think it came together in this match for her, unfortunately. Like you said, I mean, they both looked pretty gassed. It must have been some crazy humidity or something. But also, like you said, the strikes did not look good either. There are some real, I guess we could call them botches in the beginning, where really it just seemed like they weren't on the same page. Like you said, the both falling down after that shoulder tackle looked really weird. Overall, I just think it was really meh. I think Shida winning is the right call right now, but other than that, there wasn't too much to take out of this match that was all that positive, unfortunately. But like I said, I mean, I think that Swole definitely has room to improve, but I think she's actually got a little bit of ground to stand on with her character, but they need to develop her more, maybe actually say some of the things that they put on the Unrestricted podcast, maybe actually put some of that on Dynamite, that'd
Right?
be helpful to really get us caring about her. And maybe give her a little bit more ring time on Dark if they're really interested in pushing her. I can see why they're pushing her. Again, I think she has a good look. I think she's, a good person to get behind. But I think she needs a little bit more work before we can really go at this level again.
Yeah, and I think as far as some of these matches that we've been seeing in the women's division, whoever is agenting these matches needs to dial it back here. Like, these matches seem to be set up to be way overcomplicated for some of these gals. Like, it's like, okay, bring this back to a simple match. You can have simple matches that are awesome. I mean, I have seen so many Ishii matches over the past 2 weeks that's like, Ishii matches are throw tons and tons of strikes and maybe a suplex here and there, and his matches are excellent. So it's like, pull back some of these fancy moves that you want to try to do and just tell a story with basic wrestling. There was a Young Lion match. There's actually a couple Young Lions matches. Just, it's like, okay, these guys have been wrestling for, they've been training for a year and a half or whatever. And one of the matches was just amazing. It went to a 15-minute draw, and it's like, okay, this is probably one of the best matches I have seen in a long time. And it's like, these are Young Lions, and they've only been wrestling for, a year and a half. And they are only allowed a very strict move set. They are only allowed a handful of strikes, a handful of holds and submissions, and maybe a suplex here and there and a drop kick, and that was about it. That's all they need to tell an amazing story in the course of 15 minutes. So whoever's agenting these matches really need to bring some of this stuff in check. And it's like, don't overcomplicate these. It's really unnecessary to try to one up everybody when you can put on a great wrestling match with a limited move set and pull that back and just don't overcomplicate it, I think.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. I think that they are a little bit overcomplicated. I think, behind the scenes, we may know a name or two who are putting some of these matches together. And I think that they're just giving the women specifically a little too much to do. Really, like you said, they could dial it back. Tell these stories, and I don't think every match needs to go 10 or 15 minutes. I think that sometimes you can tell a story a little bit quicker, and I'm not saying that there needs to be less TV time, but I think that sometimes you're expecting a little too much out of people who don't have enough already. So maybe do multiple women's matches, but let's start a little bit, a couple steps further back when it comes to the complexity of where we are now, and allow them to really build up, because I think there are a lot of women in this company who have a lot of potential. And I just think that right now it's not being really captured the way it could be.
Yeah, this is kind of a where you want to pull in your talent that you have. You have Serena Deeb now. She was a trainer for many years in NXT. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she should be agenting some of these matches. Her match with Thunder Rosa was amazing, and they did not do an overly complicated. They did it basically an Ishii match, and that match was excellent. And everybody was complaining it went like 12 minutes. It's like, well, it was an amazing match. I'm not going to complain. And Serena Deeb is really good. They also have Dean Malenko as a agent there as well. It's like, okay, between the two of them, they can probably put together pretty much all these women's matches and not make them overly complicated. And I'm pretty sure we know it's Kenny Omega who's agenting a lot of these matches, and he tries to put in way too much flair. Not Flair the guy, but Flair the adjective, that is really unnecessary. So, and you also have, now that it's unfortunately Glow has been canceled, Awesome Kong is now available as well, and she was planning on doing agenting once filming was over. So, if you have her as well, then you can probably have some agents that really work out these matches a little bit better and don't overcomplicate things. Yep. Next up, we have Eddie Kingston and the Lucha Bros come out to go to the announce table. So they are gearing up for the World Championship match that was announced that is now going to be a no DQ match. So we have that. We also then cut to a video package here showing Shawn Spears saying good luck to Scorpio Sky. And then there was just a lot of babbling from Shawn Spears. And really did not go anywhere. Did you get anything out of this promo package?
I think that it's going to be a program between Shawn Spears and Scorpio Sky. I think that's what the idea is. That he said that Scorpio Sky stole a moment from him, and that he is now owed a moment that he needs to take back. And it was a little rambly and a little weird. And my opinion, just one guy's opinion, is if you're gonna put this guy with Tully Blanchard, let Tully talk. Let him do the thing that he can still do, because Tully's not gonna. Well, I don't think that Tully's gonna get in the ring and take any bumps. So let him talk. Let him do that thing, because he's really good at that thing. And instead, you've got Shawn Spears, who, it's not like he's a bad promo, but this just seemed a little weird and rambly, like you said. And instead, I think there could have been a little bit more intensity conveyed from Tully, and say maybe how they were both offended by something that Scorpio Sky did. I'm not opposed to a program between the two of them either. I think that's totally cool. But this package was a little weird, and also a little weirdly placed right before the main event. I thought that this could have been better served somewhere else in the show, and I would have paid more attention. But instead, I was just like, hey, get off my screen, Wow. I want to see Jon Moxley.
Yeah, it was a little disjointed from the rest of the content that was around it. Also, Shawn Spears, grow your beard back. He had shaved his beard off. He had like a 5 o'clock shadow. It's like, grow the beard back, because now you just look like Ty Dillinger now. But yeah, he had some very good promo packages in the past. But yeah, this one seemed to go nowhere, and it was a pre-taped video package. You figure they would have shot it and be like, this is not going to work. And for some reason, instead of trashing it, they put it on the air. This is like something that you either reshoot and fix it, or you just trash it and skip it and try something else a different week. This video package, I don't think should have ever made it to air.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
Then we have, they announced what's going to be on the show next week, I believe, correct?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. This is normally where they put it. I didn't take notes because I was speeding through commercials to get back up to real time. And we know that it's going to be the fatal four way for the tag team number one contendership. Champions go on at Full Gear to face FTR. And then we're going to have the first match of the 8-man tag tournament. I'm not sure if it's match or matches. I think it's going to be 2 matches this week and then 2 matches the following week. Then, of course, we have MJF at Le Dinner Debonair, which is going to be interesting. We'll see how that goes. And Brit Baker will be returning to action as well. So that is what's been announced so far for next week. So not as much. Well, actually, yeah, you got the 8-man tag. And then you have at least 2 of the, I would say most likely 2 of the tournament matches. So that's 3 matches, 4 with Britt Baker. So 4 matches is pretty typical that they announce, and then they might announce a 5th. They usually go 5 matches on Dynamite unless it's going to be a really long one. Well, that Fatal 4-Way might run long because it's 4 teams. So that might take up one of the normal short matches. So that is what we have for next week. So we go into the final match of the evening, no DQ match. And Lance Archer came out with his spiked helmet. Somebody in the chat, I'm not sure which channel it was in, mentioned that, well, that's one heck of a helmet. And I'm like, oh, you haven't seen that one? He hasn't had that helmet in AEW before. He's worn it in New Japan before. Yes. But we have not seen it in AEW before. And if you have not been watching New Japan, you probably had not seen it from Lance Archer. So he had a funny helmet that had spikes, like a mohawk of spikes. This match starts off. Moxley hits a paradigm shift right as the match starts for a near fall. Of course, Lance Archer kicks out, and then they basically have a brawl. Lots of callbacks to their New Japan match at the beginning of the year. They set up 2 tables on the outside, so a callback to what happened at the New Japan show. And then at another point, Jon Moxley sets up 2 chairs in the ring facing each other open. And again, another spot that they did at the New Japan show, but I think they switched a couple. At least the table spot they switched to ended up getting the worst of it. And we have Moxley ends up getting like choke slammed into the 2 chairs, and then nearing the end of the match, Moxley hits a paradigm shift off the apron through the tables to the floor, which I believe in the New Japan match was Lance Archer hitting a blackout through the tables to the floor on Moxley. And if you've ever seen New Japan, those tables are not as forgiving as the ones used in the United States. They have like steel reinforcement underneath, are like double thick. They're made like hollow doors are, with basically ribbing inside. So yeah, they don't break very easily. Anyways, they get back into the ring. Moxley hits another paradigm shift for a near fall, puts on the bulldog choke. Archer ends up getting free though and hits a DDT on Moxley, and then he hits a blackout, and Moxley ends up rolling through the blackout and putting on a crucifix pin and getting the roll-up 3 count. So Jon Moxley gets a pin out of nowhere here at the end and retains the AEW championship. I don't think it was much of a surprise that Moxley was going to be retaining here. So all 4 titles in AEW were defended on this show, and all of them stayed with the champions who were holding them. After the match, Lance Archer starts beating up on Jon Moxley because, of course, he got a flash pin, so he's pissed off. And Eddie Kingston and the Lucha Bros come down and actually help Moxley. I believe it was Phoenix hits Lance Archer with a chair, so Lance Archer heads off, and then Eddie Kingston grabs the microphone, says that he and Moxley have known each other since 2009, has great respect for him, and then out of nowhere, he nails him with a spinning back fist and drops him, and Kingston gets Moxley in a rear naked choke and chokes him out. while the Lucha Bros are keeping everybody from coming in to try to break up the choke. And then they go off air. And if you're watching the fight feed, they continue just a little bit longer. And the Lucha Bros were Phoenix is the best because he does the he does this during matches sometimes. He rests his chin on his hands and does a smile. So he was doing that after the show actually went off the air on the Fight TV feed a little bit, and it was really funny. Yeah, so this match, again, we were talking about the heat. I mean, it looked like Jake Roberts was going to pass out. He had a bottle of water with him. It was so bad. So he was just drenched in sweat, and he wasn't even doing anything. But the right outcome, interesting finish. It was actually kind of the flash pin, even after getting hit with the blackout, and the callbacks to the New Japan match was good as well.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I would say... couple notes I took here. First of all, I'm not a huge Lance Archer guy. I think that he plays a good role. I think that he's a big dude who can be, called upon to be in these kind of matches and do a good job. Generally, for his character, I could take or leave the Murder Hawk monster. I thought the special entrance was kind of neat. He had I don't think it was pane glass, but maybe some sort of paper or something. Maybe it was glass.
Yeah, it was tempered glass.
Oh, it was, okay. And he threw one of the stage hands, threw it, and then walked out. I thought that was kind of neat. I don't know if I like the helmet in AEW. I think that could be a little bit of a New Japan thing. Maybe keep it there. There are certain things that get over in Japan that maybe don't go over as well in America, or just maybe wouldn't to the same crowd. And I think that the helmet I could take or leave, but I think it was pretty interesting. I think it was a pretty good match. It was pretty good in the beginning. I would say it got quite good toward the end. The choke slam through the chair spot was great. The paradigm shift through the tables was also really, really good. I actually was a little surprised by how quickly they gave away, because I have been watching some of the G1, and I'm just so used to watching some New Japan and some of the tables there. So when those tables gave away, I actually thought they looked a little weak. But now that I realize it is just standard American folding tables in wrestling, I thought the finish was very creative. One thing that I noted just in my head, I don't know if you agree with this, but it feels like they're taking Jon Moxley away from his reliance on the paradigm shift. Having Lance Archer kick out in the beginning, I mean, granted, if you're going to do that spot, he needs to kick out right in the beginning, but having it be the paradigm shift, and the announcers called it as such, and having him kick out, it seems like that finisher is not being protected quite as much. But they're giving Moxley a little bit more reliance on submissions and more crafty pins, kind of like the crucifix there that finished this match. I actually kind of like that development for Moxley, that they've given him a little bit more to his repertoire, making him a little bit more of an intellectual, wrestler. I think it's not just the unscripted violence, but it's also, a little bit of an intellectual wrestler's game. He's really taking the right pinning predicaments and using submissions. But I thought that it was the right decision and the right finish, like you said. I thought that the finish also didn't take much away from Lance Archer. Having him fall victim to just kind of a flash pin is not, it doesn't hurt him too bad to lose this match. And getting his heat back by just giving a huge boot to Moxley right after and laying Moxley out, I think was a fine finish. I really liked Eddie and the Lucha Bros coming down. I really liked the visual, the quick promo that he cut, and also the visual where he was trying to say, he respects Moxley and all this, but he's not helping him to his feet. He's like, "You're my friend, I respect you. I'm proud of you, man." But the visual was perfect because he's sitting there holding the mic, and Moxley's on his knees, like looking like he just, went through the match he went through. And he's just kind of telling him how proud he is of him as he kind of almost lays there, and he's not necessarily trying to pick him up per se. They said, "Oh, get the man his title." He gets, I think, Penta to grab him, or Phoenix to get the title and give it to Moxley, give the man his title, kind of giving him some sort of respect before hitting that spinning back fist. I thought the back fist looked great. I've been watching a little bit more MMA recently, and at first I was like, "Oh, that it looked more glancing." But when you watch more UFC, like, that's sometimes just how it goes down. You hit, everyone's in motion. You hit a back fist and it knocks someone out. So I thought it actually looked really good. And the immediate switch to give me that title. give me that belt. And a moment ago he was saying, give the man his championship. And immediately he made a point to highlight the belt once again and say, give me that. Like, now he wants it. It's greedy, right? He's taking it for himself. I thought that was really neat. And I like that they're leading to Moxley and Kingston for the pay-per-view. I think that's a good program. I think that it's been a kind of an undercurrent storyline that he never, submitted previously, nor was he thrown over the top rope in the Battle Royale. So I think that going this direction is fine. The only thing that weighs it down a little bit is that they did previously have a match with each other that Moxley won. But again, I think that was due to some travel restrictions on some of the talent that
COVID.
He was quickly substituted. Right, exactly.
Yeah, a bunch of the guys tested positive for COVID, so they can. Well, Lance Archer was one of them. Right.
Right. So they
it was going to be who's going to be in that match? Yeah, it was going to be Lance Archer, Brian Cage. Yeah, 6-man tag, and it was Lance Archer, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks. But Lance Archer had contracted COVID, so that's why they had to change it up. We all knew that Eddie Kingston was going to get a title shot anyways, but of course he got it there, and this is going to be very strange because this is the first time that AEW has done a rematch, has done a world title match twice. This has not happened in the year, and being such a short time with Kingston was only like 3 weeks ago, so it feels a little strange that it was going this way. I don't know if this was their original plan, that they're going to head this way, and they just, for some reason, substituted in that title match. Not sure why they would have done it if they knew they were going this way. But I do like how Kingston is still delusional about losing that match. It's like, dude, you were blacked out. You were gone. That's the end of the match. That's how this works. It doesn't matter if your body submitted, even if you didn't consciously submit, your body did. Right. So you lost that match fair and square. So I do like the bit of delusionalness. That always plays good as a heel. You always have to have that heel being a little bit delusional about himself or what happened, or trying to basically gaslight everybody on what actually happened, even though we all know what actually happened, and he's just trying to gaslight everybody. So, I
don't know if I'm off on this. Tell me what you thought about this. But the choke that he gave Moxley was looking really good. Like, Moxley was getting red in the face. I don't know if he was really choking. Probably not really choking him, but maybe Moxley's holding his breath, because he really did turn red.
Yeah.
And he sold passing out really well. Now, granted, I know he's been training MMA. He's probably actually passed out. He knows what it looks like to see guys choked out, for real in a shoot fight. But I thought he sold that great, while the Lucha Bros actually played interference, keeping the refs away. I thought was really good. And I thought for a second, I was like, that looks a little real. Like, he got purple, he passed out. I thought that was a real neat choke, and I think it sets up the match that they could, play that choke as a potential finish in their match. So I thought it looked really good.
Yeah, it shows that Eddie Kingston has not just the impact finisher of the back fist, but he also now has a submission as well. So it gets over the submission. I think this segment was more to get over his both finishers in the same segment, so that was good to do. As far as going back a little bit as with the paradigm shift, I think Archer is the only person to have kicked out of the paradigm shift since AEW started, so I'd say it's well protected, and it's just Lance Archer is a beast, and that's the only reason that has happened. But we did talk a little bit. Jon Moxley has used various moves at this point. I believe he's won with armbar, a guillotine choke, rear naked choke, and the bulldog choke. And we have talked, he lives in Las Vegas and actually does train with Randy Couture, so I don't think you can have a much better teacher than Randy Couture when it comes to this type of stuff and learning, legitimate fighting and kind of what happens. So he is just kind of strutting his stuff a little bit, and I like that I mean, this even alluded to in the MJF match and the promo leading up to it when, MJF was wanting to ban the paradigm shift from the match. And he's like, well, that's fine. I'll just come up with other creative ways to get you to tap out or give up or rip your arm off or whatever. So I like how that it's like Moxley doesn't need to rely on the paradigm shift. He has it and he can use it, but he has so many other dangerous weapons that he can submit you with that he can just overwhelm you and finish you that way. So I don't think they've ever mentioned on TV that he trains with Randy Couture, but he lives in Las Vegas and does train at his gym. So probably hasn't been doing a ton of training with Randy Couture lately, but that's how it is. But overall, this show, it had some ups, had some pretty bad downs. So I think this lands at a below average for me. Just some of it just did not work. That women's match did not work very well. The ending of the tag match did not work very well. Then we have the falling down out of the gates with Miro. We've talked about the Jericho MJF running a bit long. And then we did have the high point of the time limit draw match with Cody and Orange Cassidy, which was just fine. And then the unexplained, why are they doing random picks for 4 teams? That didn't work for me either. So, we did have some pretty bad downs on this one, so I definitely give it a below average.
Yeah, I think that I would give it. What's actually funny is that I think I'm seeing more the positives than the negatives. I agree. I think we're almost on the same page about what was positive and what was negative, but I actually think I'm viewing the positives just a little bit more. After the show, I actually felt kind of good. I thought, yeah, okay, there were some downs for sure. But overall, I would say that it was at least average. But to be fair, I think AEW's average is pretty high. I think an average show for them is definitely an entertaining 2 hours. So overall, I would have called it just about average. With the high points being the TNT title match, which I thought from start to finish, everything about it was well booked, well done, well executed. I loved everything about it. I really did like the main event, especially as it ramped up toward the end of the match. I thought it was great, and I think them setting up Eddie Kingston as his next challenger is a good call, because I'm a big Eddie Kingston mark, I have to admit. I really do enjoy his work. I also really did like the opening match, despite the weird finish. I take more positive out of it than negative. So yeah, I would say it was a good show, in my opinion. And while I agree that those negatives exist, I think that overall, when the show was over, I thought, it was pretty good.
We can talk about ratings just really quickly. Viewership was up to 826 from 753 last week. Of course, last week had the vice presidential debate, so that was like 50 million people watching that. So that's how it was. But even though the viewership was up, they were down in the key ratings, probably just because more people were watching TV. Because obviously you have more viewers, but had a lower rating. That tends to be the case, just more people watching TV. It is just down from 0.31 to a 0.30, so not a huge drop there. So nothing big out of that, about average for AEW. So there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. Have you watched night 12 of the G1?
I have not. I am still behind, unfortunately. I've only ever seen, I think, the first few shows. So I'm probably at least about a week behind on the G1, unfortunately.
Okay, and then you're asking...
I've been keeping up with some of the results. So If you want to talk about it, I don't mind a spoiler.
Nope. This is not about this, because now you're like, well, how's this tied to AEW? Kevin Kelly had a very interesting comment during the Tanahashi match. He mentioned that Tanahashi was part of the 30 years of Jericho, and that he had a video over on AEW. That he did not say AEW by name, but he also said, I don't think that these two are over. That the issues between these two is over yet. I don't think they're done with each other. That's what he said. I don't think they're done with each other. So very interesting.
Jericho and Tanahashi.
Meaning Tanahashi and Jericho, yes, because they faced off at Wrestle Kingdom this year, and Jericho won that match. But Kevin Kelly says I don't think they are done with each other yet. So very interesting that they would mention that he was part of the 30 years of Jericho, sending a video over, and that he doesn't think they're done. So we'll see how that goes. I wonder if we will ever see Tanahashi in an AEW ring. That would be mind-blowing.
If I have to be totally honest, I think that of anyone in New Japan, I think Tanahashi has the position to do so. I don't think they're just going to let anybody do that if that door continues to slowly creak open. And, much to the fans' chagrin, we're sitting here thinking, oh, we're dream booking matches. But I don't think that door is going to fling open. I think it's going to slowly creak open. But I think Tanahashi is one of these guys who has the position essentially on the card and in the respect of the company to do something like that, essentially to be an ambassador in a weird sense. And I think that he's actually just the right guy if they want to continue that feud. The only other one that, and again, this is smarky booking here in my head, but the only other guy that I really would like to see in AEW is Jay White. Actually, I really want them to continue the Bullet Club versus Elite storyline that never finished due to the creation of AEW. I'm not sure if you were watching BTE at the time, but they were obviously going somewhere with the Tama Tonga Tongaloa, Jay White, the Bullet Club versus a break apart when Cody was a part of the Bullet Club as well. So I really just want a resolution to that storyline, but if anything, that would be years and years, at least a few years down the road. But for right now, man, I think Tanahashi and Jericho in AEW would be wonderful. I think that's a great direction to go and a great opportunity, a way for them to keep that door, pushing open just slightly.
All right, and then we can talk about the number one contenders tournament. So very interesting. We have Penta and Phoenix going against each other in the first round. Hopefully neither of them die, because this match is going to be brutal as hell, because they always do crazy matches against each other. So very interesting to see that one. And then other opening matches, we have Kenny Omega versus Joey Janela, Wardlow versus Jungle Boy, and then we have Hangman Page versus, I'm totally spacing at the moment, Colt Cabana, yeah. So I think it's pretty safe to say we have Hangman moving on in the first round. Kenny, we don't know about either. Lucha Bros will be fine. And don't know about Wardlow Jungle Boy, but I'm thinking Wardlow probably is going to move on there.
My read on this is that you have the most obvious thing here is that you've got Hangman and Kenny on opposite sides of the bracket, a very possible meeting in the finals. And something that rings in my head, I can't remember where I heard it. I was consuming some other wrestling content, which, hey guys, listen to That's Wrestling, but you can consume other content as well on YouTube or wherever you find wrestling related podcasts. And I don't remember who said it, but I heard someone say just because the result is obvious doesn't mean it's wrong, right? So a Kenny Omega Hangman Page finals seems obvious, but it also doesn't mean that it's bad. This is a way for them to tell that story, and along the way have some good matches, fill some TV time. And I do anticipate that our final will end up being Hangman and Kenny, just because that's where the story's at. I think this whole tournament is kind of a vehicle for that, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean I hate it. I think in terms of results, unfortunately, I don't want to be rude when I say this, but either of the Lucha Bros is fine with me. It really doesn't matter. I think they're both interchangeable because they will both have a great match with Kenny Omega, who I believe is going to go over. I do like that they've thrown Kenny Omega and Joey Janela together because they've had a little bit of a history of having a few good matches in AEW. Specifically, I can remember probably the best AEW dark match to date, in my opinion, was the two of them. I know that there was a recent one that had a few people talking, but I think that's one of the best dark matches since. So I think they'll put on a great match.
Their lights out match.
Yes.
Yeah, I was there for that. That was awesome.
Really?
Yeah, it was sweet.
That's awesome. So I think that they will do great. I think that Hangman over Colt Cabana is probably my easiest prediction. Very easy, unless some sort of weird Dark Order shenanigans get involved, but I don't believe so. I think it'll be Hangman. The Wardlow Jungle Boy match is hard to say, but I actually think that it's going to be Jungle Boy, and I think that he'll face Hangman, and I think Hangman, wow, going over in their match is really going to give him a shine and allow him some time, really have a good match together, have Jungle Boy really kind of push him, maybe not quite to the limit, but give them at least 10 or 15 minutes to really put on a real good match, have a mutual show of respect, maybe handshake after the match. Because I think Jungle Boy is someone who, while I think that he is, definitely over, I think people really like him. I think you need to continue to give him a win here and there. Otherwise, people might start thinking kind of weird about the Jurassic Express. And I think he is a star of the future. He's not quite a main eventer yet, but he's a star now and he's a main eventer soon. So I think that they need to continue to give him just a little rub here and there to keep him elevated in a sense. So in my, fantasy booking world, I would say Hangman over Cabana, Jungle Boy over Wardlow, have them meet and put on a real good 15-minute match.
Yeah, it should be interesting. We still have the wild card, though, of if the Young Bucks screw Page during this tournament, because he screwed them during that gauntlet match. So that could be a way to push off Omega versus Hangman by screwing Hangman out of making it to the final, whether it be in that first match with Colt Cabana or the second match with, who knows, either Wardlow or Jungle Boy. So it could be interesting how we come down to this. It could be Kenny facing Jungle Boy or Colt Cabana in the finals, not Adam Page. So we still have that.
That's a good thought. I had not thought about that at all. And you're right. They owe him for sure after being screwed. So that would be very interesting. And I think that would also allow this tournament to really show that they've decided to side with Kenny, essentially, because they didn't go with him after they, there was that walkout sequence where Kenny basically walked from the ring out to his car. And the Bucks were following him, and they didn't choose to go with him, though he offered, I believe, said, "Come on, let's go," and they didn't go with him. So I think that would actually be a really great opportunity to show, hey, they've cast their lot. They're with Kenny. Really good idea.
Yeah, they do very few dusty finishes, so I would be okay with this one happening because it would make very good storyline sense. Because it would be a receipt for what Hangman had done in the past as well. So we'll see how that goes. So that might be a way to get out of the Hangman versus Omega match that everyone thinks is obvious. And as you said, that I'm pretty sure Alvarez has said it many times that, just because the outcome is obvious doesn't mean it's the wrong decision or the wrong booking decision to do. There are a lot of times where it's very obvious what's going to happen and it's the right thing to do. I think that comes down to, that was a huge debate going into the first AEW World Title match. Jericho was almost the obvious winner of that match and was the right winner, just because it's obvious that obvious doesn't make it the wrong decision.
Right. But I also think that kind of, to that point is there's actually still more money in that feud, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they have to call it now. I know that there have been some things AEW's done that I'm like, oh man, when is this? Is this almost over? You know what I mean? This feud seems like it's run its course and then some. But I definitely think there's still money in that. So if they choose to do that way and not go with a Hangman and Kenny match in the finals, I definitely think that would be a perfectly fine call because people are going to continue to be invested in the storyline. Pushing it down the road is not going to hurt it at all. It's not like people are going to stop caring about this. What I think is probably the best long-term story that AEW's got going. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think that having them push that back further, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's just going to be a nice little delay until you eventually get to that, that final blow off, which is going to be amazing. And the longer they wait, the higher the anticipation builds.
Yeah, they take a very their booking philosophy tends to be very similar to a New Japan, whereas you're rarely going to see these guys go one-on-one. Their one-on-one records are limited, where you have over the course of a decade, you might face the same guy in a one-on-one match 8 times. It's pretty common in New Japan, and I think AEW needs to make sure that they always have a mix of different length of storylines. So you have some short-term storylines, you have some, medium, 1-2 month long storylines, and then you have some, 6 month storylines. You have like a year-long storyline, and then you have your ones that just run out longer. And those are fine. And I think the Omega and Hangman storyline is going to be one that's going to run for quite a long time. Basically, the storyline really started in November of last year, is when the storyline really started to kind of that's kind of when the fire was lit, and now it's just been a slow burn this whole time, and I would not be surprised if this continues to run out for quite a while, and we might not have a resolution to it until we are 2 years after the whole thing started, which is perfectly fine if you're telling the story correctly, and then you do have other storylines that are resolving during that time. If all of your storylines are booked, 2 years out, obviously you're going to have problems. But if you have that spattering, you have this storyline resolving here, in 3 more weeks you have a different storyline resolving, regardless of how long it was. As long as you have those resolutions of other storylines, you're fine to have one storyline that just drags out, and especially between these two guys. Adam Page, I think, has really come into his own. I think he's one of the best actors that they have. He can, because there was that promo with FTR after he realized they screwed him, or after he screwed the Bucks, and he had that promo with them and realized that he was used by FTR. He just emoted like 6 different emotions in the course of 10 seconds on his face without saying a word. And he's just talented enough that he can carry this storyline just in his acting ability alone, for a long time to come. So we'll see how that turns out.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was really listening to what you said. Man, I totally agree. I think he's a great actor. I think that people have really gotten behind him in a way that I think people weren't expecting to, almost at first. I think that they have done a great job of giving him the right surroundings, giving him, the right story to really sink his teeth into. The, alcoholism essentially has been both played for comedy and played for serious. I think it's been a good mix. I think that the one that really resonates with me was ahead of the greatest tag team match ever at Revolution. The Bucks versus Hangman and Kenny. And in that promo, they sat down with JR, and I think at one point, Nick Jackson said, "You were just a jobber in Ring of Honor before we met you." And when they said that, obviously he looked hurt, and I was just like, man, everyone else around him has done a great job of making us feel for Hangman. You know what I mean? Just the setup for the story has been really good. And as deserved, I think it's one of these rare instances where the crowd has naturally gotten behind him, and that's kind of what they want. You know what I mean? Sometimes the crowd gets behind and it's not what the promotion wants. Sometimes the promotion wants you to get behind someone and we're not interested. But in this situation, I really think they did such a good job that the promotion wants us to be behind him, and we are. I think he naturally has a real good following.
Yeah, which was clearly an accident, because Hangman was turning heel, and then he started to get over as a babyface accidentally, and I think that's definitely one of the audibles that they called, because I'm pretty sure they were planning on turning him heel, and he just took off as a babyface for what he was doing as a badass anti-hero, basically, as a sort. So, yeah, it was a good audible that they called. It's one of those that it really shows, even though they have plans, I'm sure they've planned out, 6 months to a year worth of storylines at any given time, and that's definitely one they just called the audible on, is okay, we're just gonna go this way, and we're gonna play this one by ear a little bit just to figure out where it goes, and then book off of that once it kind of finds its groove. I think they did that, especially once they get to the Jericho Cruise and put the belts on Omega and Hangman. Now they are very slotted. I think they already had an idea what they were going to do over the course of the title reign. So yeah, good to see. So we'll see how this this tournament plays out, if we actually do get Kenny and Hangman at the end, or if something something really wacky could happen to Kenny. I think Kenny's making it to the end, but going up against Penta or Phoenix is still not going to be an easy charge, whereas Hangman's bracket seems a little easier to predict. So we'll see how that goes, but I still think the Young Bucks might get involved. So we will see.
Yeah, I'd like that very much. I think that'd be a very cool little receipt there. For Hangman, I think that'd be a really cool way for them to continue the storyline, just like you said. And even though I really did want to see the Kenny Hangman final of that tournament, I think actually I'm more on your side now. I think you've talked me into it, and I definitely would love to see the Bucks get involved, really definitively turn heel, like I mentioned, and side with Kenny, and really take that 3-man elite to the next level.
Yep. So before we wrap it up, anything else you want to discuss on this show?
The only other thing that I don't think we mentioned is that Cody's blonde again.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes me mad, because I guess he was just going with the whole dark hair look for the game show that he filmed, I guess.
Well, I think it's actually a red herring where he is actually going to be turning heel soon. I think that promo that he cut last week where he said that he's not turning is a total misdirect, and he is, because even in the match with Orange Cassidy, we didn't touch on it, but he had lots of heel tendencies. He was doing some showboating, doing push-ups in the middle of the match,
Right. He's been doing it for a little while now, I think.
Yeah, getting some of that frustration when he could not finish Orange Cassidy in a few spots, and doing a few heel things here and there. So I think that is just a misdirect, and I think he is still going to end up going heel within, I don't know how, I'm guessing by the end of the year.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I just thought it was strange to see him blonde again, and I really, not that I have real serious preferences on what wrestlers do with their appearance per se, but I thought that the suit that he had worn, that dark suit with the dark hair, it was a new look, and I thought he should have kept that so that when he did turn heel, he continued to have that new look. Because oftentimes when someone turns heel, you want to give them new attire, new music, something to differentiate the character. And I think it was almost like a foreshadowing, to have that dark colored suit, dark colored hair, and then for him to turn heel, he could have done it within a quick time frame so that we more so associated the dark hair and the dark colors with his heel run. So I was hoping that it was going to be soon, and even if it is soon, I certainly don't mind. I like the story that they're telling with him, that slow burn. But I don't know, just to see the blonde hair, I thought I identify that so much with his babyface run, not just in AEW, but even pre-AEW when he dyed his hair blonde on the indies and really kind of took off after WWE. One of my favorite wrestling shows I've ever been to was ROH in Lowell, Massachusetts, when he won the ROH title for the first time after leaving WWE. I was there for that show, and the roof came off the place because, of course, he was heel Bullet Club Cody, but he was not a heel that night. Absolutely not. No one would have thought. And really, as a smarky wrestling fan, I associate that hair with that was when he came into his own and became his own man, right? He became his father's son, not just what WWE wanted him to be. So when he came into AEW with the blonde hair, man, even just as a straight guy, I was like, yes, I love this. It's so good. I just had a little bit of heart palpitations for Cody because he's my man. So I don't know. I just thought them keeping with the blonde hair, or going back to the blonde hair, just a little, like you said, probably a misdirect, and I'm making too much of a big deal about it. But I wish he had kept the dark hair.
Well, maybe that look will come back when he does solidly turn heel, and we'll we'll get that. Maybe that was like a temporary, just like a flash of what's to come, like some foreshadow of what's going to be coming up. So I guess we'll see. So, yeah, I think that's it. Anything you want to plug before we wrap it up here?
No, other than you can go ahead and give me a follow on Twitter if you'd like. On Twitter, I'm Caleb S. Johnson. You'll see my big old face, and it'll say something like wrestling nerd or something like that. And I think I actually have the banner now for the That's Wrestling podcast on there. So find me on there. Otherwise, nope, no real plugs.
All right, so thanks for watching and listening, everybody. If you are listening to this as a podcast, we do the show live over on YouTube, so you can head over to the YouTube channel. The link is in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can get a podcast at all your favorite podcast apps, or geez, I can't even talk today. In all your favorite podcast apps, I know there's probably at least 60 of them that I have seen in the stats that have come down, so it's on a lot of platforms at this point. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to eric@thatswrestling.com. There's also a Discord link is in the show notes and description as well. So for Caleb Johnson, my name is Eric LaRoche, and you've been watching and listening to That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.